Nice to meet you, Mr. Kinana.
Pleasure meeting you.
Thank you for accepting our interviews. Okay, so next week, China's new president, Xi Jinping, is going to visit Dar es Salaam on his first time visit overseas as a president. How do you, as the Tanzania government, see his importance of his visit?
Well, I think first we are very grateful, we are very pleased, we are humbled. I think take pride in that the Chinese president, immediately after his election as president, as the General Secretary of the Communist Party of China, he decided to visit Africa, and the first country he's going to visit is Tanzania. And not only that, but I understand that he's going to make a major speech while in Tanzania during the opening of Julius Nyerere Convention Center. So we take that visit seriously. A lot of activities has been lined up. The visit is short, but crucial and important. So we take the visit as very important. But most important is not about the visit, it's also about the reason probably why President Xi Jinping has decided to visit Tanzania first. And that is because of the historical relationship, the traditional relationship that has existed between Tanzania and China for over 50 years. We have worked together between China, we have common interests, we have common values, we share a lot of views on international issues, on country-to-country cooperation. So really, with China and Tanzania have every reason to celebrate that President Xi Jinping, immediately after his election to the current position of being the president of China and the leader of the Chinese Communist Party, decided to visit Tanzania. This is a testimony, is an evidence of your country's commitment, of China's commitment to Tanzania and to Africa, but also in recognition of the relationship between our two countries and our two peoples.
I've noticed that you are leading the delegation of Tanzania in China, have been traveling during the past week in China. So what's the purpose of this trip?
Well, we are invited by the Chinese Communist Party, and we took up this invitation. And we have come here with a very strong delegation, represented by all the CCM structures, plus the organizations, the youth, the women, the elders. The Secretary Generals are also with me, the Deputy Secretary General. We have two deputies, one of them is also with me. The head of the foreign department of our party is also with me. We attach great importance to our visit to China. We visited a number of areas in China, a number of provinces. We went to rural areas where it was quite interesting to see the activities in the rural areas, both the political, economic, and social activities of the rural areas. We were also pleased to see the transformation that has taken place in China. I was last in China 18 years ago, and what I saw this time is absolutely tremendous. Is quite exciting, the transformation that China has gone through. So this is evidence of the Communist Party's reform policies, but also your country's reform policies and adapting to the realities of the current international situation in terms of investment, inviting foreign investments in your country, in terms of giving better opportunities to the Chinese instead of in terms of allowing Chinese to invest, to do some private investment in their own countries, and allowing Chinese to get richer.
Yes, in previous media interviews, you called this trip to China a learning trip.
Yes.
So, what's the things you have learned so far during this?
Well,
trip?
definitely one of the reasons why we came here is also to learn, what China went through, to become what it is today. China is the second largest economy. China is an important country in the world today. I'm sure very soon probably they will become number one economy in the world. They're progressing very fast. The economic growth is going at a very satisfactory and sometimes tremendous rate. So we have come to learn what is the secret of this quick transformation. What is the secret of these great successes that you have scored over the years? but also how do you deal with major issues? Issues like ethics. How do you oversee ethics in your country as you transform the economy? In the process of transforming the economy, it is also possible that some of the political leaders can fall into the attitude of becoming greedy or misusing their public office. So how are you able to control all this? How are you able to control corruption and at the same time? But also, how do you alleviate poverty? Now, in the process of learning, the Communist Party organized a seminar for us of 3-4 days, where several people came in and talked to us, and we had interaction with them, very useful interaction on how China transformed its country, its policies, both economic and political. So we have learned quite a lot, and the Communist Party enabled us to go to many places, both urban and rural, in the industries, but also in other areas, to see in practice, how this transformation took place.
Yes, and China and Tanzania have established diplomatic ties since 1964. Yeah. So how do you evaluate the evolution of the Sino-Tanzanian ties over the past 50 years?
The relation between Tanzania and China has gone through a lot of tests, and over the years we have succeeded to overcome every test and successfully. So we have very strong relationship, and the relationship has been growing over the years. It is my view that this relationship will grow to a higher level. We are intending to widen and deepen and strengthen the relationship that exists between the two countries. We have common view on a number of issues, both within our countries but also internationally. So we share, we share views on a number of issues. It is my view that we will develop now our relationship more in the economic areas, to cooperate between the two countries, but also to see what investments can be done between China and Tanzania, and both in the interest of Tanzanians for mutual benefit, at the same time respecting each other's sovereignty and each other's cultural and political views.
China's increasing presence in Africa may cause some Western media's criticism that is China's neo-colonialism. So what's your comments on the role of Chinese enterprises and the Western criticism?
Well, I would say it is an unfair criticism because, as you know, the Western Europe colonized Africa for over 500 years in some places. So I think they have no cause really to complain about China. I have never seen China interfere in our internal affairs, in the internal affairs of the African government. I have not seen Chinese dictating to African governments what to do and what not to do, how to behave and how not to behave, what values to adopt and what not to adopt. I have not seen Chinese putting conditions in whatever assistance they give or whatever business they do. And whatever business we enter into between Tanzania or many African countries and China, it is done willingly. There's no any kind of pressure. But from what I know is that some of these countries in the West arm twist some of the African countries. They come with economic or social assistance, to our countries, to our people. On some conditions, they come with conditionalities, and those make sometimes life hard for us. So if they come in with conditions, then it is okay. If the Chinese come without conditions, so they have to create something for the Chinese. And because they have this media power, the world media power, it's easy to paint China and say anything, whatever they want to say. I was reading one of the articles in the West. When they heard that the Chinese president is going to Africa, they say, oh, China is going to paint the whole of continent red now. So the continent will become red. I don't think that is the case. I think we are mature enough, responsible enough, sovereign enough, independent enough to know who our friends are and who are not our friends.
How do you see the prospect of the strategic operation between China and Tanzania in the future? As you mentioned, that economic cooperation is one part of that. But what else? Which areas do you think shows more?
Well, not only economic cooperation, but China has given a lot of assistance to Tanzania. And those who are talking about the relationship between China and Tanzania, those who are talking about the relationship between China and Africa, they should go back to history. China has played a very important role in the liberation struggle in Southern Africa, in the entire African countries, in Zimbabwe, in Namibia, in South Africa, in Mozambique, in Angola, in Guinea-Bissau, in Cape Verde, in all these countries, China played a very important role. And while they were supporting the African countries in their struggle to liberate themselves, they did not they did not put any conditionalities. They were not expecting much from the African continent at that time. In the 60s, 70s, and 80s, when China was extending support to the African liberation struggle, the question that we would ask ourselves is, what were they expecting from the African continent? Nothing. I think they were supporting us as a matter of principle, you see. So now that we are all independent, even 25 years or 30 years after our independence, we are still trading with the Western countries. We are not trading with the Chinese. Now that we are trading with the Chinese, so we hear a lot of noise about China, But surprisingly, even the Western countries who have some economic activities in Tanzania and many other places are giving contracts to Chinese companies because of their efficiency, of their delivery, of their discipline. So our strategic interests for both Tanzania and China are nearly the same.
Yes,
we share the same interests.
Yes. China has been Africa's largest trade partner since 2009. And last month, the president of African Union, Zuma, visited China. And we know that there are regional frameworks like the AU and the China-Africa Cooperation Forum. So what's your opinion on this cooperation frameworks?
Well, I think it's an important cooperation framework. I think if you want to be honest and want to realize the benefits that China gives to Africa and the benefit that Western countries do give to Africa, I don't want to cite many examples. I'm not part of the government, so I really don't know much. But I would say, just to look at the forum, what do they call it, the GA summit. In the GA summit, a few African heads of states are normally invited. Just go look into the figures where the GA summit commits itself to supporting Africa. I think what they normally commit is about $2 to $4 billion. These big 8 countries, the Western countries commit 2 to 4 billion, I think. And if you check how much is dispersed during the 12 months that follow the summit, it is not even 50% of what has been committed. But if you look into the Africa-China summit, more money is committed by the Chinese to the African continent than what the 8 giant countries, 8 big economies of the West commit to support the African countries. So that tells you that the China-Africa relationship, China-Africa cooperation probably is more fruitful, is more useful, is more result-oriented, and therefore there is a need to grow the economic, social, and political relationship between Tanzania and between China and the African continent.
Yes. As many Chinese people may still be very unfamiliar with Tanzania as an African nation, so what do you think how to boost the people-to-people exchanges?
Well, number one, I would love to see Chinese drinking coffee so that we can sell the Tanzanian coffee to China. If 1% of the Chinese start drinking coffee, that would be over 2 million Chinese drinking coffee, and that would give us an opportunity to export coffee. When I met the party secretary for the province of Guangdong, I told him I will start with him by asking him to start drinking coffee so that the rest of the Chinese can drink coffee and Tanzanians can sell coffee. Second is if we can encourage Chinese tourists to go to Tanzania. The number of Chinese tourists coming to Tanzania is minimum. It's very small. It's very insignificant. So we would love to see more Chinese coming to Tanzania. But for that to happen, definitely we have to put the right conditions in place. So we plan to organize a trip for the travel agencies, the tourist organizations in China to come and visit Tanzania and see what facilities can be put in place for the Chinese to be able to come to Tanzania. And that will definitely push the people-to-people relationship. But also cultural exchanges. You know, we have a lot of cultural groups in China. We can organize for them to visit Tanzania, but also Tanzanian cultural groups, musicians to come to China, and that would certainly encourage people-to-people contacts.
Okay, I think that's the end of my question list. So thank you for accepting our interviews once again.
Thank you very
Mr.
much
Kinana.
for
Yes.
giving me this opportunity.
Yeah.